So what is IGEL? I know a couple of you guys know what it is, but what it isn't. But IGEL is a Linux-based OS, very thin, very light. Um, it is a read-only OS, which makes life a little easier when it comes to management of that OS. When it comes to any type of ransomware attacks, any type of AV agents, any type of XDR stuff that's going out there, they have done a really good job of taking a CentOS based kernel and customizing it to enhance the user experience. Whether it's for OS, for tap and go in the healthcare environment, simple access to Citrix in financial institution way, a couple different things we can go from there. One of the big things about iGel to see or keep in mind is that it does help reduce TCO. We're seeing about 75% ish help reduce the surface attack that we see with ransomware. Fortunately, I just did currently a ransomware restore here recently, and it was pretty rough to get the customer back up, and they were out a couple of weeks. So definitely takes that away from them. Also, what we're seeing is the use of going to Windows 11, whether it's a strategy that they move into the cloud and use something like Cloud PC, or they're using something like Citrix around this, so going down that path. The other big one that we've seen as well is that it allows you to sort of keep the e-waste and ability to keep old hardware around, which makes life pretty easy there. So three big benefits that have been broken down for iGel. The first one is they are moving now into more being a security-based company, not just an endpoint thin client company. So they've broken down to this thought process of being a preventive uh, security model, which allows them to basically be diverse in the environment of what they're trying to do, whether they're trying to do hardware endpoint, where they're trying to be, isolated with specific use cases, whether it's a user inside the four walls, whether it's a user outside the four walls. We have the ability to do a lot of that. The other benefit is financial, like I mentioned, the TCO models. The average cost for a device for, say, for example, Windows 11 device today, $1,000 give or take. What we're seeing in the thin client world, it brings it down, a good 60% of that cost. And the last part is the manageability part. That's the big piece I interact with a lot. I try to simplify it, and everybody who's worked with me in the past or has done work with me, they understand that engineering standards is a big one for me. Optimizing the user experience is a big one for me, and then automating the enhancements or the thought process of how we deploy and manage the devices is another big one for me. So going back to the security preventive model, one big thing it's the trying to do is it's secure by design, right? It's read only. They have a modular design when it comes to how you run the applications, whether it's the base OS with ancillary applications getting loaded into it, whether we're adding a Citrix workspace, whether we're adding a Island browser, whether we're adding a Chromium browser. It allows us to sort of understand what can be put directly on the device and who owns that thought process. Um, From the uh, partnerships perspective, we're seeing a huge involvement. For example, like Island, like Palo Alto is the latest one that just got thrown in. Zscaler just got thrown into the mix as well. So we're seeing a good amount of big technology partners accept the IGEL OS and become sort of a thought process now in the solution, which is part of the reason we're here today. So one big thing we'll probably cover here at the end of this, when Jason does his presentation, is the adaptive secure desktop. That's sort of how we can take the iGel device and make it our daily day driver. From manageability perspective, one big benefit from a iGel perspective is that it's easy to stand up, easy to get registration going. It's simply a DNS record. Automatic enrollments we can get going for whether a device company or company has 100 devices or 1,000 devices. We can do set delivery rules for when the device hits the UMS. We can go ahead and put those in specific placements for directories, which allows us to do sort of a zero touch integration with deployment and getting those devices ready to go from, boot up to fully configured within a 5 to 10 minute range. So definitely cuts back on time as we see like a Windows 11 rollout where when on board it could take anywhere from 2 to 3 hours. The UMS is available with on-premise, and they have just added a new feature with UMS as a service, which is hosted in AWS, which is something I'm excited about because when I worked at IGEL, it was a big ask for our customers there. So, one nice thing about this is rolling into some of the enterprise devices or enterprise customers I had is that the amount of FTE to manage IGEL is pretty slim. So technically, they're seeing that every one FTE can manage about 20,000 devices. So that's been a big one for us. Where you see sometimes having endpoint teams having 4 or 5 guys just manage 400 devices. So that's been a big piece for us. Some of the high value cases, shared workstations, as Jason mentioned, we came from banking, so we've seen that definitely there. Healthcare has been another big one for us. Retail and manufacturing, having these guys out on the floors there. Back office workers, call centers. Um, with these latest craze that we had with COVID a couple years ago, remote workers became a huge thing. I think when I worked during COVID, I was actually at IGEL, and that was probably the busiest I've ever been. We probably deployed a good 70,000 work from home devices during that, first couple of months. So that was pretty crazy. And then they have some new technologies coming out with digital experience. So sort of the self-service kiosk, digital signage like you guys see at the airport, tracking boards when you walk into a hospital and you see the epic, what's going on here, or if there's a surgery center going on where they're at. So those some of the pieces there. Some of the added features now they've done too lately has been the business continuity and disaster recovery, which I'll cover a little bit here in a slide. So my big um, gain from this conversation, I think today is going to be the adaptive secure desktop is where we utilize the IGEL OS to be sort of our native daily driver and go away from that Windows thought process where we don't necessarily need to have a Windows device if we don't have legacy apps that are installed locally. So some of the breakdown here is going to be from a VDI perspective, our usual, right? Amazon Workspaces, Omnissa, AVD, Citrix, traditionally RDS, Workspot, Frame, and Chasm. From the browser perspective, we have the Islands, the Edge, Citrix, New Spa, Firefox, and Chromium. The next one's going to be progressive web apps. So actually taking some of the web apps that are native to O365 and delivering them directly on, making them look like they're installed. Some native apps, PowerShell, Nuance, Zoom, Improvata, which has been a big one for IGEL, which they actually been co-developing the agent now to help use cases in the healthcare space. And the latest new one is going to be the hypervisor perspective, where you can run legacy VMs or legacy or even your Windows 11 VM within the IGEL OS as a local uh, hypervisor. So hosted desktop apps, as we know, are the traditional thought processes, right? So that's what we've seen it be. It's what iGel sort of started their whole mark on. So logging into Citrix, logging into Omnissa, logging into AVD. It's been sort of the thought process many moons ago, but as we've seen the progression of the OS and also of applications and the environments get better, I think we now see a whole new thought process on how we can deliver a desktop for an end user. On the browser space, I'm excited to have Jason here. I saw Island about 2 years ago at Now and Next, and ever since then, I think it's been one of the best products or new browsers on the market that allows some flexibility along with the security and delivery of sort of a custom and usable user experience for users, where they sort of get everything delivered directly there. And we'll have a little bit more details there when Jason goes into his piece. Progressive web apps. Everybody knows what progressive web apps now in the Windows 11 world. One nice thing about iGel is that it takes it away from the user to create that progressive web app and allows us as the uh, management side deliver it for the user from that perspective, right? So we can sort of make it look and feel like it's part of the OS, but it can be customized to the end user, and we can go down that path. Some of the iGel native apps, which I'll mention here, these are the REST web apps, right? So we're seeing the Outlooks, the Excels, the Words, the Teams, all the daily drivers that people use today if they have the O365 stack. On the native web apps, this is the big one, right? The iGel has over about agile environment or agile ready program has about 100 different applications that can get brought in. When I started, I would say maybe there was about 12. So definitely the thought process there has increased the ability to have an agile ready program and reach out to the ecosystem. For example, like folks like Island to bring this in and show us has been huge and tremendously big for the IGEL OS and thought process there. The other big piece is that you can also do customer apps, which they have a custom app packaging portal now. So for those of you who had done IGEL in the past, no more custom partitions. Rah rah shish boomba. That used to be a nightmare. So, but yeah, and any new use cases you can think of. I mean, if we can run on Linux, we can most likely get it running on IGEL. This is a new one, the managed hypervisor, right? So, for example, folks who have some of those legacy Windows XP or Windows 7 or even old school Windows Server apps that need to be ran on a old OS, we can actually capture that image and run it locally on a IGEL, as long as the hardware can support the sizing that we need for that VM to run on it. So that's a big one. I definitely would like to have an office hours around this one. So we'll definitely go into that one there and on office hours. So yeah, just a little thought process there. Nice part about it is controlled by the UMS, so images can get inputted to the UMS. They get downloaded from the UMS, and we can go in and push those there. The big one for that one, also to make note on in Windows 11, it does replace the TPM module that you'll need from a traditional thick client. We can do a virtual TPM there, which is huge. Um, Back to the business continuity pieces here. This is a new function and feature sets that are coming in from IGEL. We just saw this a couple weeks ago, but they're now next is where we have the traditional installation of IGEL OS being installed locally. We've had the fully bootable called the UD Pocket, which was great during COVID. But now they are adding a couple more, right? Which is going to be the dual boot mode, right? Where you have Windows running, but if you need a failover to IGEL to just get to a generic app or to get to a generic virtual desktop that maybe is Intune joined, you now have that ability to do that. And then again, the local hypervisor that's been created.